This was the first morning in Paris. It was kind of rainy for most of the time we were there, but it was still really warm, so it was nicer than home. We were headed to one of the first art galleries we went to, which there was really long queues for, so we did have to wait in the rain, and then as soon as we got inside, it did stop raining, which was kind of annoying. But on our walk there, we walked along the Seine. We could see the Eiffel Tower just peeking behind some of these trees, and it was really lovely. From behind the clock face, you could see out onto like most of Paris, which was really cool. There was a restaurant here that we ate in later, so you'll probably get to see that later on. This was the main atrium, which was filled with loads of Greek-style marble statues, and then there was paintings from all sorts of eras. There was some really famous pieces, so some of these are Monet's, some of them are Van Gogh's. It was just so exciting to get to see pieces that I'd studied for so long actually in the flesh, and it was really interesting to see that some of the most famous pieces by these artists were obviously the most popular, but then some of the ones like this is a Monet that I really like. There was literally nobody in front of it and I could just walk right up. I think one of my favourite pieces from this whole trip was the painting I'm about to show you next. It's a version of Claude Monet's Water Lilies and a Japanese Bridge, but it's one of the lesser known versions. The entire collection includes like 250 paintings. But another favourite of mine was these. These are paintings of churches, and there's a series of about 5 or 6 of them. And I just thought they were really, really beautiful, and they're so intricate considering how blurry the Impressionist effect makes them look. The view from the gallery itself was over the Tuileries, so it was really nice and green. I know it looks pretty grey in this video, but it was really lovely. Overall, there was just some really, really impressive paintings from people I had heard of and people I didn't even know. This was my mum's favourite of the whole trip. It was just a really wonderful time. Then we headed out past this beautiful clock into the Tuileries themselves. It was quite busy because it was October half term. but we managed to get a seat around the fountain, so we just chilled there for a little while. When we were heading back, we decided to take a couple detours to see what we could see. So we walked past the Louvre, we walked past some of the shopping districts, just to see what was around us and what we could see on our route. And then we headed out for some dinner to finish up our first day in Paris in this really cute little bistro. We got steak frites and it was really lovely. The next day we got up and got on the metro to head to a part of the city that's entirely dedicated to secondhand. So it's kind of like a massive flea market. It's divided up into basically what the different vendors sell. So this district was all about antiques and very lavish home furnishing. Most of the time we spent was here with the kind of clothes and secondhand vinyl, CDs. There was some home decor here, but it was more small decorative items rather than like big pieces of furniture. There was this really cool sculpture that was designed to look like an alien spaceship, and inside you could see loads of vintage furniture. We stopped for a coffee and then carried on with our day. This food was so good. We only stopped because we felt like we needed to get some food before we moved on. This was the walk up to Sacre-Cœur, which was really nice through little windy streets. There seemed to be ivy growing on all the classic buildings. We walked past a couple of cafes that were really famous, but we were really glad we'd already stopped because they were all absolutely swamped. This was the view from nearly at the top of the hill. You could see pretty much out onto the entirety of Paris. This was inside a slightly different cathedral that was just tucked around the back. We did not want to queue all the time to get into Sacre-Cœur, but this one was really nice and quiet, and you got the effect of the stained glass, which is something that I really love. This was Sacre-Cœur itself. As you can see, lots and lots of people. It was almost more impressive from further away because you could take it in more, and the view from the top was possibly more impressive than the cathedral itself. These were the steps leading down back into the city. That's my mum's hand. So she was pointing out all the different landmarks that we could see from up here. Again, this is Sacre-Cœur itself. I think you can see here why it looks so much more impressive from further down. Again, the city, I was kind of obsessed with this view. If you can tell, this is from about halfway down the steps, probably a third. We then headed the rest of the way down into the city. This is Moulin Rouge that we wanted to see before we got some food. This food was actually so amazing in a little place right by the Gare du Nord. Then we walked straight outside and got back on the metro so we could head to see the Eiffel Tower. All lit up. It was really beautiful this night. It was quite clear so you could see some of the stars. And obviously the light show is incredible itself. And that was the end of our last full day in Paris. The next morning we got up and got some breakfast before heading to the Pompidou. There's Mum. We'd booked some tickets into an exhibition as well to make sure that we could get a time slot. Even though we literally booked on for when it opened, there was still massive queues. And I think it was even worse if you were later in the day because you had to go through everyone else who was still queuing from the previous slots. I didn't like the Pompidou as much as the previous galleries we'd been in. It's modern art, so a lot of the stuff was more abstract. I still really enjoyed it though. I think there were certain things that really drew me in.
I really liked the animation stuff, the multimedia film kind of aspect of the gallery. I also really liked the classic illustrations. There were some really, really famous pieces as well it was so impressive to see things like this actually in person. And it was so quiet because we were some of the first people in. I really loved the comic style illustrations. Some of them were really funny. I think it was just nice to have the time and space. Like, this viewing platform was so quiet basically the whole time we were there. By the end it was starting to get more busy, and I definitely was glad that we'd been earlier. But illustrations like this were so impressive that it was just lovely to see them. This was the exhibition we'd booked onto. It was kind of an experimental film series. There was lots of interesting clips. The whole room was really dark. This is me trying to get my camera to focus. But there was some really beautiful editing that had been used, some really interesting platforms for displaying the films. And it was just a really exciting thing to get to be a part of and get to see. This was lunch at Pierre Sang. It's a set menu. Basically, they bring you it without telling you what it is, and they have you guess what you think is involved, and then they reveal to you what it was. All of this food was so good. I don't know why my hand is in frame here. Please ignore. But yeah, all of this food was actually so incredible. We had such a lovely time. We then headed up to see the Arc de Triomphe. We felt like we couldn't leave Paris without having headed up there. It was a lovely day by this point. The trip really brightened up towards the end. But yeah, this was just really nice. We ended up sitting here for ages because it was so lovely. We then headed to the shopping district. We didn't really do much shopping on this part of the trip because we knew we would be doing loads in London. Then we picked up some macarons, which we just ate on a nice bench. It was really lovely and sunny by this point. So we were just taking it easy, making sure we weren't rushing. We wanted to leave enough time to go and catch our train. This was our last afternoon. Then we headed to the Galerie Lafayette, which is this beautiful shopping centre. And that was the last thing we did. That was the end of our trip. We then headed to get our train into London and stayed there for a couple of nights. Hopefully you've enjoyed this vlog, and I will catch you in the next one. Bye!